Secrets, lies, and inconsistencies. These have been the signature features of War Thunder since the early days. Back then, the game was an informational void. Nobody knew nothing. Stat cards were useless, there was no X-ray, no protection analysis, no wiki, no nothing. People like me essentially had to figure out everything on their own. And that was a problem for two reasons. First off, it was impossible to have discussions. Every opinion was based on feeling alone with no numbers to back it up. Good luck trying to tell that Stuka pilot that his plane is actually garbage. Second, there was a huge rift between the regular players and people with infinite free time who actually went and properly tested every single plane. And of course, they didn't share this information with anyone else. Over the years, the situation has gradually improved. Now we have all these nice features and online resources to reference. Life is good. Or is it? What if I told you that, in reality, not much has changed at all? War Thunder is still full of secrets and lies that most of you are probably not even aware of. So today, I would like to share some of them with you, starting with a very interesting one. Item number 1, ammunition belts. Oh Linica, what can you possibly tell us about belts that we don't already know? Yes, we know that we need to use armor-piercing incendiary rounds for machine guns and high-explosive shells for cannons. Yes, of course you do. But I would like to point your attention to something weird. Have you ever seen a recording of a good player using German 20mm cannons? Maybe it was a YouTube video, maybe a Discord clip, but all of them tend to use stealth belts. If we look at the belts, we can see that air targets is superior to stealth. After all, it has one more high-explosive shell in it. So why in the world would they not use it? This has to do with an incredibly obscure mechanic of this game. Long story short, the first shell in the belt determines the velocity for every shell in the belt. Let's look at the belts again. Air Target's belt begins with an armor-piercing shell that has the muzzle velocity of 720 meters per second. That means that every single shell you fire will travel at 720 meters per second. Now let's look at stealth. It begins with a high explosive shell that goes at 785 meters per second. Once again, that means every single shell in this belt is fired at 785 meters per second. The conclusion is that by using the stealth belt, you boost your shell speed by 65 meters per second. May not seem like much, but trust me, it makes a big difference. This mechanic, by the way, is universal. It applies to every single gun in this game. So next time you choose a belt, make sure to go into protection analysis and check the velocity of the first shell, just to make sure you aren't nerfing yourself on accident. Speaking of protection analysis, let me show you something else. If you have ever flown a Japanese plane with HO-155 cannons, you might have noticed that sometimes they do absolutely no damage. How is this possible? What you might have missed is this little thing called fuse sensitivity. Here is a shell with a sensitivity of 0.3. Explodes, deals damage, all seems good. And here is a shell with a sensitivity of 0.8. Uh-oh. Basically, this round needs to hit something in order to explode. Something hard like the engine or the fuel tank. Otherwise, it does absolutely nothing. Moral of the story? Try to avoid using shells with low sensitivity like this one. Their damage is incredibly inconsistent, and that can be the difference between a clutch and a broken keyboard. And now, let me tell you about World of Warships, the sponsor of this video. It's a game about massive ship battles, and it has all the legendary ships we all know and love. You like battleships? How about unleashing the might of the Japanese Yamato? Or maybe you would prefer the famous Bismarck. It's up to you to choose. You like destroyers? How about going for risky but rewarding torpedo attacks in the American Fletcher-class destroyer? Maybe you like aircraft carriers? How about taking control of your own personal air force in the Japanese Shokaku carrier? Or maybe you're like me and you like submarines. In that case, how about trying out the legendary German Type 7 U-boat and sinking unsuspecting enemies from below? There are countless authentic and beautifully crafted ships in the game, so you're sure to find the one you like. Did I mention how good this game looks? The game is very accessible. If you so desire, you can just relax and play against AI opponents. And if you feel competitive, you can always jump into PvP modes and assert your dominance. World of Warships is free and receives updates every month, so don't worry, you will always have something new to play with. If you like what you see, then make sure to use the link in the description below. New players using the link will receive 1.5 million credits, 500 doubloons, 7 days of premium, and a free choice of USS Phoenix, Japanese Kuma, French Corbeil, Italian Dante Alighieri, or HMS Wakeful after you complete 15 battles. And now, back to the video. Item number 2, the infamous stat cards. There is a lot that can be said here, but I'm gonna be real with you. They were useless in 2013, and they are still useless to this day. Stat cards are supposed to be this quick summary of a plane's performance, but in reality they are so complicated that the information they provide is essentially worthless. First of all, a lot of them are straight up incorrect. Even when they are correct, these numbers are for planes with full fuel, which isn't very helpful. So, maximum speed. This value is only for a certain altitude. What if you wanted to know how fast the plane goes at sea level, where most of the fights happen these days? Well, too bad. Next, turn time. This one is complicated. This is the time it takes for your plane to do a 360-degree turn while holding a perfect angle of attack and perfect speed at 1 kilometer altitude. What is this perfect speed in AOA? The game doesn't tell you, of course. It also doesn't tell you how maneuverable the plane actually is. If anything, it shows how well the plane keeps its energy in turns. The lower the time, the better the energy retention. Jets like the Horton are the best example of this. They can turn very hard, so they are maneuverable, but they also lose a lot of speed doing it, so their turn times are quite high. Next, climb rate. This one is more or less completely useless. It shows you the climb rate of your plane at a perfect angle and speed at 1 kilometer altitude, but climb rate constantly changes with altitude. A lot of planes climb like monsters at sea level, but lose a lot of horsepower at higher altitudes. And again, it doesn't even tell you what that perfect climb speed is. So, long story short, stat cards are worthless. So then, where do you even find this information outside of testing it yourself? Don't worry, I gotcha. In the description of this video, you will find links to 2 spreadsheets. One lists the top speeds for most planes at sea level, and the other lists sustained turn rates. They are easy to use and are full of very useful information for those of you who would like to see the real-world numbers, as opposed to the cryptic stat card garbage. Item number 3, manual engine controls. Sounds scary and complicated, but don't worry, it is extremely easy once you figure it out, and the benefits are massive. Have you ever flown something and thought, damn, I wish this plane didn't overheat so bad, I can't even climb like this? Well, the solution is right there. All you need to do is go into Full Real Controls tab and bind buttons for enabling engine control, radiator controls, prop pitch, and supercharger gear. Bind buttons for increasing and decreasing the value for each one, and also make sure that relative control is enabled. I use numpad for all this stuff. Oh, and don't forget to switch back to mouse aim once you're done with your buttons. Now, whenever your plane overheats, just enable engine control and set the radiators to 100%. Done. You can now climb in peace. This is all you need to do on German planes, for example, as they handle everything else automatically. Now, on Soviet or American planes, you also need to set propeller pitch and change supercharger gears. In this case, just set your pitch to 100% and forget about it. It doesn't matter on most planes. Supercharger does matter, but for most planes, you just need to switch the gear at around 3 to 4 kilometers altitude. If you're suddenly losing speed, then it's time to switch. Once you get used to doing this, you will forget about overheating outside of extreme cases. This is a massive quality of life improvement, and while not every plane needs it, it does make your life a lot easier. Item number 4, pilot skills. When you look at them, they appear to be so simple and self-explanatory, and yet some of them are absolutely crucial, while others make no difference at all. First, you need to fully upgrade G-tolerance and stamina. This is your highest priority. The former determines the overload at which you start blacking out, while the latter determines how quickly you pass out and recover. I hope it's obvious that losing control in the middle of a dogfight means certain death. Don't want that? Then put every single point of experience you have into these skills. You don't have any points? Well, there is a trick to help with blacking out even if your skills are low. When the screen starts getting darker, press the elevator button to pull your plane into the opposite direction for a split second. It's not a perfect solution, but still better than losing control entirely. Now, the rest of the skills in the Pilot tab are not a priority, especially not Vitality. Please don't spend points on that. Your pilot will die either way, so you better focus on not getting hit in the first place. What you should focus on next is repair rank and speed in logistics. The rank should match the rank of the plane you're using, or the rest of the skills will not apply at all. Repair speed is kind of obvious. You don't want to sit on the airfield for 30 seconds, do you? Especially if there are enemies nearby. 10 seconds sounds much more reasonable. There is also a very interesting trick here. As long as your plane is undamaged, and I mean completely undamaged, you can just leave your aircraft immediately upon landing without having to repair or rearm. This will put you in the spawn menu, where you can change your loadouts, respawn again, or leave. Another trick has to do with rearming speed. You might think this skill is important, but it is actually entirely worthless. You see, when you repair your plane, it also rearms automatically. Interesting how that works, isn't it? So don't waste your points on rearm speed, it does nothing. Now, if you fly bombers, my condolences, but let's go over these skills. None of them do anything except for vitality. Yeah. You see, when you use your gunners manually, none of these skills actually do anything. And when they are controlled by AI, they are blind, deaf, and severely disabled. So all you really care about is their HP. One final piece of advice. If you know you're gonna be flying a plane for a while, please purchase Expert Crew in the Qualification tab. I know it can be expensive, but +3 to all skills is extremely important, especially once you get into jets. So, there you have it. I know there are so many more things I could have mentioned, but let's take it easy for now. However, if you wish to know more right here and right now, then consider joining my Discord server. Whatever questions you have, I will try my best to answer. For example, is anyone playing low BR right now? Yes, I'm sure someone is playing low BR right now. Thank you for your question, Mario fan. Alright, it's time to mention my amazing Patreon supporters. Luminosity, Hidora, Yegeri, Florian, Subvision, and CEO of Getting Snailed. I love you, and I appreciate you. Once again, thank you to World of Warships for sponsoring this video. Check them out if you're interested in epic naval battles. Next video is likely going to cover a series of planes similar to my P-51 video. Which ones? Let's keep it a secret for now. Either way, take care and I will see you next time.